Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review. My name is Anthony Salic. It is a wonderful day to be talking with you guys about the brand new latest installment in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But before we get to this review, guys, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It absolutely helps out a ton. Or whether or not you want to do that. I don't know. I can't force you to do things. I don't know. But anyways, let's get into the review. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3. It's been a while, actually, since I made a video. I think the last video I made was Mandalorian Season 3, and that was like, what? Like earlier this year or something like that. But anywho, now we are back with the next installment into the MCU, which, actually, before we get into Guardians, kind of wanted to point out it's been a while since we covered anything Marvel, really. I mean, the last thing was Ant-Man Quantumania, and the problem was it wasn't really a problem, but before we get into Guardians, Ant-Man had such a diverse reaction and reviews from like the fans and the critics that like a lot of people were very, I don't know why there's been this sort of like MCU has fallen off when literally almost every other project has been amazing. Like you had Endgame, and then you had Black Widow, which was alright, Shang-Chi, which was amazing, Eternals, which was alright, Spider-Man, which was amazing. Then you had Doctor Strange, which I really enjoyed, Thor: Love and Thunder, which was really underwhelming, Wakanda Forever, which was fantastic, Quantumania, which was underwhelming, and then now you have Guardians. So Guardians 3 is the third in the trilogy, and it's the final time that we are going to be seeing these characters. More specifically, it is also the final time that James Gunn, director of the Guardians trilogy, is finally going to be at Marvel. He's recently moved on to DC, so this is his last major Marvel production thing. And yeah, let's get into the movie. So, spoiler heads. So let's start with overall. Because there's a lot of, I think that this is, as an overall film, it was something that has been in the works for so long. And to finally be here, I was going into this movie with a lot of expectations. Because, I recently rewatched the two Guardians films, and those were absolutely incredible. The first one is still one of the best things the MCU has ever produced. Guardians 2 was a little bit not as good as the first one, but it was still pretty decent. And going into this one, I had nothing but high expectations for it. The cast has been hyping it up. James Gunn with his story, the fact that he is able to finish and tell the story that he's not necessarily been planning since the beginning, since there were some changes that I'll get to later on in the review. But there was a lot of things in this film that had a lot of closure, and I think that that's one of the biggest things of them all. So let's get started. The main plot summary of this film is this. The villain of this film is the High Evolutionary. Now, I don't know the actor who plays him. I also can't pronounce it. It's a very tricky name to say, but I'm just gonna call him the High Evolutionary. The High Evolutionary is on the hunt for Rocket Raccoon, aka 89P13, who, as we learned in this film, was an experiment that the High Evolutionary performed in order to perfect different types of species of animals. So the High Evolutionary is essentially a mad scientist who wants to experiment on different animals in order to create a perfect civilization where there's no flaws, there's no cracks in the different species that he makes. And Rocket is essentially his first successful operation, or his first successful test. And this is, again, it's mainly Rocket's story. He plays a big part, even though he's kind of out of it for the most of the film. But essentially, it's about the High Evolutionary and the Sovereigns, which is Aisha and Adam Warlock, who we'll get into later, trying to hunt down Rocket. And it's the Guardians trying their hardest to save Rocket and then ultimately destroy the High Evolutionary. That's as simple as I can sum it up. But if when we really go into it, it's a lot. It's a very, very complex, but yet very emotional story. So to kick it off, I'm gonna review everything bit by bit. The story is absolutely amazing. I think James Gunn has said this multiple times, but Rocket being the secret protagonist of the trilogy is without a doubt a genius choice. I feel like, because by incorporating his backstory in this, you sort of learn a little bit about this character, but while also having his story and his how do I say it? You're having his situation involving the rest of it. Because he's injured and because he means so much to the Guardians, that his story is able to blend in with the Guardians' individual arcs. So when we talk about the Guardians, for example, you have characters like Star-Lord, Gamora, Drax, Nebula, Mantis, Cosmo, Groot, who all sort of go on this not really big character arcs, but they're character arcs that sort of blend in with the overall story, which is very, very cool. So going on to individual characters, want to kind of keep this quick and simple because we have a lot to talk about in terms of the story and the ending. Star-Lord, thought it was amazing. Obviously, Chris Pratt is the main character in this franchise, but I also love how his story is all about heartbreak and learning to heal, which is very, very amazing. Again, we're going to spoilers, but his ending in which he learns to go back to Earth and be with his grandpa again really just shows how much he cares about himself and how much he's willing to heal. And that self-heal is at the end of the day what Star-Lord's journey throughout the entire Guardians franchise has always been. From losing his mom to then fighting his dad to then reuniting with his grandpa, he's able to sort of self-reflect and be able to heal through the amount of pain and trauma that he's been. Gamora, very interesting character. Not the Gamora that we know from Guardians 1, 2, and Infinity War, but rather a variant that was able to come back in time during the events of Endgame. I feel like this Gamora wasn't intended to be in this story, at least the version that we see. Now, it could be due to James Gunn and what he's went through in the past. For example, maybe not having enough input in Infinity War and Endgame, or maybe it was because of the firing that he had in 2018. But Gamora, although she does mix in very well, I feel like there might have been a version of Volume 3 that didn't contain her, or that contained the original Gamora. But her story, nonetheless, really blends in. Her sort of becoming a Ravager is really, really not what I expected, but it works well. You know, she's sort of on her own. She doesn't have the emotional attachment as the other Gamora did. So it kind of leaves her to be this lone wolf on this type of in this movie. Mantis, absolutely amazing. She's become like one of my fan favorite Guardians. She's awesome. And the amount of emotion that she has in this film, specifically towards Star-Lord, Drax, and Rocket, I think was without a doubt the best. She's obviously the caretaker. She's like the caring parent or the caring sibling in this film. And you could see that very, very much, like her affection towards Quill to Drax is without a doubt beautiful. Drax, I don't know if I ever stated this before, but I'm not a big fan of the way that Drax has been handled in the MCU apart from the first Guardians film. I think that the comedic, idiotic character that Dave Bautista brings in is not really the best. I think it works from time to time, but I think it's something that can ultimately be more of a comic relief than of a massive character arc. Like Drax throughout this whole film, while he does have his serious moments, is more of the comic relief character, which is something that at this point with Volume 2, Infinity War, the holiday special. It's become repetitive, and I really wish they would have changed things up, but they pretty much keep it the same. He's still a fantastic character, and I do like the things that Drax does, but it's just kind of the same old, same old. You know, it's the same thing that we've been dealing with for like the past 5 years. Nebula, great. I love her arc in this film. She, like, it's funny because like when I was rewatching it, Nebula was such a single on my own type of villain where she just wanted to destroy the Guardians and more importantly Gamora. But because of the events that she went through, Infinity War with losing Gamora, and then with Endgame with only having Rocket and the Avengers, she's really become this person who sort of appreciate and begins to accept the things that she has, that being the Guardians. And we see throughout this film, Nebula literally has everyone's back. Like, if you talk smack about a Guardian, Nebula will literally like, I don't want to say attack, but she's willing to throw down hands. You know, if you talk smack about the Guardians. Am I forgetting someone? Groot in this film, awesome. I love the swole Groot that they went for in this film. I think Groot has mainly shined in more movies than this one. I would say he shined more definitely in Volume 1 and Volume 2. And so with Volume 3, I think they kind of took a step back with his character in this film. He does have some great moments with him and Quill fighting the High Evolutionary's men. And Groot just pulls all the guns outside of or he pulls out all of the guns that are inside of his body. So cool. I love Groot in this film, but I think he does shine more in the other two movies. That's just my opinion. And Rocket, my God, such a sad story. Here's the thing. I thought Rocket was gonna not die. I thought he wasn't gonna die at all. I legitimately thought Rocket, here's the thing. Because they were going to be introducing Lila, who is Rocket's love interest in the comics, I thought that they were going to keep Rocket alive so that he can have a happy ending with Lila. You know, he can go have like a love interest. And when they pull out the twist that the High Evolutionary kills Lila and Teeth and Floor, it absolutely broke my heart. The High Evolutionary, and I'm going to get to this in a little bit, but he is such a terrible villain, not in terms of acting or performances, in terms of like how bad of a person this guy is from like a moral aspect. And Lila dying, I legitimately thought Rocket was gonna die because of that. And he does, like here's the thing, Rocket technically does die, but then he comes back to life. So it's sort of like this thing of like, well, we tease his death, but we're not actually going to fulfill on that. You know, we're going to keep him alive for a little bit, especially when we get to the ending of this film, which I think is going to be very important for Rocket's future. Cosmo, funny as hell. I love the telekinetic space dog. Very, very cool. Kraglin kind of felt like a mini arc for him. It didn't feel like they were fully investing in that character wholeheartedly. He learns how to use the Yakra arrow, which was given to him by Yondu, or by Quill actually. But I think there might be something for him down the road, which we'll talk about later in the ending. And is that all the Guardians that I covered? I think so. Okay. They introduced Adam Warlock, who, this is an introduction phase. I have seen some people criticize Adam Warlock because he doesn't get enough screen time, or he's seen as a joke. Here's the thing. He is played up as a villain at the beginning, but because of what he goes through in this film and because he was given a second chance, they're going to be definitely saving him for the future, whether it be Guardians 4, Secret Wars, Kang Dynasty, whatever. So, I think that he's going to be a very important character later on. And I did like Will Poulter's performance. It was really, really cool. Short and sweet. And I think that it gave audiences a tease of what's to come. So, let's get into this. This is the one that I've been wanting to talk about. the High Evolutionary, a villain I've been excited for. I know this review has probably been going on for a long time, but I gotta talk about the High Evolutionary. One of the things that a movie can do in order to have a great antagonist is two things. If you want to have a good antagonist, in my opinion, you have to do two things. You have to make his motives relatable or understandable. I'm sorry. There's two ways to make a good villain. His motives are relatable / understandable, or he is completely hateable. For example, a villain that is relatable / understandable would be like a Thanos or a Killmonger. With Thanos, you understand why he wants to kill half of the universe because, overpopulation is a big, serious thing that many planets in the MCU suffer from. And, for example, Killmonger wants to become the king of Wakanda in order to share Wakandan resources with other black nations out there so that he can help the other nations out there thrive and be able to gain power. But then you have the other side, which is a completely hateable villain. And the High Evolutionary is exactly that. I don't know if there's a real life inspiration that the High Evolutionary actor used for his character, but I have definitely heard stories of like scientists like through World War II or through like other top secret missions in which scientists do unhumane, just terrible experiments on animals. Like even Cosmo, the space dog, is inspired by a real life Russian space dog that was sent to space, and it was like, it's that type of thing where, like, when you look at the real world, there are so many, and I bet you can easily search it up. You can search up scientists that experimented on animals, right? There have been so many scientists out there who have, tortured, killed, hurt so many different species of animals in the name of science. I think that High Evolutionary is a perfect example of like real life people, but with a more horrific and terrifying scene. Him sort of causing or running all of the experiments that mostly end in failure until he gets to Rocket is so horrific. And the worst part that I hated about the High Evolutionary was when he found out that his so-called perfect civilization was actually not perfect in the way of creating violence and doing drugs. His first instinct is to literally like explode the planet. He explodes a planet full of life. I mean, like, I don't know how big or how many people were on Counter Earth, but it's got to be like at least millions. I mean, this guy is ruthless. He killed millions of species because they weren't perfect. And it's like, it's that hatred that you have towards a character that really tells you that, wow, this is a guy that we got to take seriously. And I love what they do with him, and I absolutely hate the things he does, killing Lila, killing all the people on Counter Earth, bringing so much harm towards Rocket. It is the absolute worst. And I love, there's two things that I remember from this film about the High Evolutionary, and I'm gonna talk about something else in a second, but there's two memorable moments that I have of the High Evolutionary. The first one is when Mantis, Nebula, and Peter are looking through Rocket's history, and Nebula has the quote where she says, "He is worse than what Thanos did to me." And Thanos was very ruthless to Nebula, but the fact that she considers the High Evolutionary to be worse to Rocket really shows just how evil of a person the guy is. And also, the second thing I remember from the High Evolutionary, there was a quote that he said that was like, it gives you a sense of how evil this guy is. He says, "There is no God, so that's why I had to step in." And it's like, man, this guy is ruthless. This guy wants to create hell for people, man. He thinks he's a god and he just wants to wish nothing but chaos on people. It is absolutely crazy. So that's it. Now here's the thing. With the High Evolutionary, I gotta admit, he is in my top 5 MCU villains. I cannot lie, y'all. If I were to give you my top 5 MCU villains in no particular order, it would be Thanos, Loki, Killmonger, Namor, and High Evolutionary, without a doubt. Okay. As always, now there were some things that I wanted to talk about, but I feel like this review is getting so long, so I'm just gonna simplify it. The music, amazing. James Gunn is a master when it comes to music in his films. The action, some of the best I've ever seen. I loved it. Memorable moments. Peter and Groot going up against the High Evolutionaries people. The beginning Adam Warlock fight where Adam Warlock goes up against the Guardians. Amazing. And what I would say, I might do a video on this later, but the hallway fight at the end. Oh my goodness. I believe it was one shot, or it was supposed to be a one shot, but my God, was that hallway fight amazing and beautiful. One of the best fights I've ever seen in the MCU. The jokes were fine. I really enjoyed a lot of the jokes that were in there. Some of them didn't settle, or some of them didn't make me laugh, but majority of the audience laughed at the jokes that were said. So, not every joke is going to hit you, but if it hits most of the audience, hey, he did a good job. Visual effects were stunning in this film. I absolutely loved it. For example, when they go to that prison that is made out of like actual flesh, absolutely amazing. The space, the fights, the explosions that are in this film are wonderful. The VFX are definitely good. I sincerely hope that this is how Marvel treats their visual effects for the rest of the MCU, because it was absolutely on point. And I think that's it for majority of it. Okay, ending time. Let's go to the ending time. I did not expect most of the Guardians to survive. I was saying this before. I was totally expecting Rocket and Drax to die. I thought if there's gonna be any deaths, it's Rocket and Drax. And we did kind of get deaths. Rocket did die, but he did come back to life. And Quill almost died, but was saved by Adam Warlock. So we get to the ending, and we find out a couple of things. The first one is that Peter and Mantis are leaving the group. Gamora is now a Ravager. Nebula and Drax are now going to be the protectors of Nowhere. And Rocket and Groot now are essentially in charge of the Guardians and have assembled their own team. The fact that James Gunn was able to tell a story in which no deaths happen, or at least no permanent deaths happen, was absolutely amazing. And I think that it kind of has to do with the characters, because I feel like death in terms of storytelling in films and movies are kind of an easy way. If you have a character that dies, it's like, they die and then we'll remember them with all our love and affection. But when a character is able to leave and find happiness, or at least go on a trip that can lead them to happiness, I think that's such a way better thing to do. Mantis going on her own to find herself, Quill reuniting with his grandpa, Drax now becoming a father figure to all the children that they rescued. It's very beautiful. And we may never see these characters again. A lot of, and like Gamora, for example, finding a home with the Ravengers. We may never see these characters again, but at least we can know in the back of our minds when we, continue watching the MCU, we can at least know that they're happy and they're doing good things that will help themselves. And while we may never see this team ever assembled again, we can always know in the back of our minds that they're at least in a better place. That instead of, trying to fight and encountering close death situations, that they're able to live a peaceful life and have a proper send off. Which, a character's death can also have the same type of affection, but I also think that a character send off has just as much as, or if not more, impact than death. So I really love that James Gunn sort of left the door open for these characters, but while also, if we do never encounter these characters again, at least they have a proper send off. Absolutely loved it. Thought it was amazing. Thought it was beautiful. I'm so surprised that the man who created the Suicide Squad, or not created, but directed a Suicide Squad film, who literally killed 3/4 of the Suicide Squad, let all of the Guardians live. That was so hilarious when I was thinking it after watching the movie. I'm like, this guy killed like 15 plus people in the Suicide Squad, but yet all like 9 members of the Guardians end up living. Like, I just thought that was crazy. So, I thought it was a beautiful ending. Post-credit scenes. The first one, we see Rocket and Groot with the new Guardians team consisting of Kraglin, Cosmo, Adam Warlock, and I believe, I can't name the little girl off the top of my head, but she's like this Captain Marvel kind of character. But they have her as a kid, so like I assume that it might be a while until we see these characters. So like by the next film, they can have the little girl aged up. Thought it was beautiful. If a new director ends up coming around for Guardians 4, or if they do like the Annihilus storyline, I have absolute high hopes for that team. I think they're going to be fine. It may not be Star-Lord, Drax, and Gamora, but it will be a great team filled with characters that we love. And holy crap, Groot is like a fucking bus size, dude. That guy is huge. He's like Alpha Groot now, which might be a tease for Secret Wars. Who knows? Because if you've ever read 2015 Secret Wars, you know that Groot kind of plays a cool part in that storyline, as long with some other Guardians like Peter Quill, and so on. And the second post-credit scene is Peter having dinner or having breakfast with his grandpa, and it's kind of a funny scene, but it ends with the title card, "The legendary Star-Lord will return." So Star-Lord Chris Pratt is going to be coming back for either a solo series or for another team-up series. If I were to guess, I would probably say that they might have a solo series in development for him, or they might have a spin-off, or maybe him being a hero on Earth for a while. Because, I mean, you could have him in Secret Wars, and I do think Chris Pratt, Star-Lord, is going to be in Secret Wars, but that would be just kind of easy and too early to kind of tease that. So I think that there might be a special project for Star-Lord before Secret Wars that they can really pull off, maybe like a special presentation or a movie. Who knows? But I think that there is something in store for Star-Lord aside from Secret Wars if we do get that beforehand. But I loved it. Overall, this was an incredible film. Having rewatched the first 2 Guardians, I will say it is amazing. I don't know if this beats Guardians 1. I have to rewatch Guardians 1, which is funny because I just rewatched it, but I want this is a phenomenal movie. Hands down, no matter what. But is it better than Guardians 1? I want to say it is, just by a little bit. And also, how is this film not rated R? Like, the High Evolutionary loses his face, and you see, like, his skull, his bloody skull. Peter drops an F-bomb. There are so many grotesque and gory animals, hybrids in this film. How is this film not rated R? That's what I was thinking. Overall, a beautiful movie. I would say, as the ending and as a film, I think it's a little bit better than the first Guardians. But I have to wait and see. I have to rewatch this movie again to see. But if I were to rank them, I would say Guardians 3, followed by 1, followed by 2. The perfect ending to an amazing team, and the perfect ending for the amazing director that is James Gunn. If I were to rate it, out of 100, I would definitely give this film a solid 95%. But with that said, guys, that is it for my review. If you did enjoy, please feel free to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe. If you guys did enjoy this review, please let me know, and be sure to subscribe, as I already stated, as I will be dropping more videos soon. I do want to make some more Guardians videos because I think there is a lot to talk about, but this review has already gone for too long. So thank you guys so much for watching and listening. My name is Anthony Salic, and I will see you all next time. Peace.